In this video, I'll be comparing similar fridges from National Luna and Snowmaster. They aren't perfectly identical in size, but they are pretty close. And please note that between camera issues and being sick for a few weeks, some of the dates on the display bounce around a little bit. All testing was done in a 65-degree temperature-controlled environment.
I'm going to go over some pros and cons of both of these because I do consider the Snowmaster and the National Luna to be the premium refrigerator. So I'm going to add some more details in this review compared to what I did on the other fridges, because on both of the other fridges, I have a review video for both of those. These ones are more of a comparison, comparing two premium products. So I'm going to add a few more details in than I did on the other comparison test. I don't have an affiliate relationship with either of these companies. Snowmaster has given me discounts before, but I don't get anything to tell you to buy a Snowmaster, or I don't get anything to tell you to buy a National Luna. But I just want to do a test to compare them because I have them both here, and they have both about the same footprint. Something to note here is this Snowmaster, even though it's close to the same size and it has dual doors, it weighs 57 pounds, while the National Luna weighs 74.1 pounds. So there's quite a weight difference on these two refrigerators. I am having to use a different battery than I did last time. The reason for that is the National Luna would not work with the Jackery battery. I tried multiple times. It started doing this weird thing where the motor wouldn't quite kick on and the display would start flashing. I do have another battery pack now that I have access to. It's a little bit different, doesn't have quite as nice of a display. It'll still tell us which one's using more power and how much power it'll use over a set amount of time. These refrigerators don't have a bigger compressor than the other Snowmaster does. My little Snowmaster is a 66 watt compressor as well. I assume it's the same thing. And then the National Luna has a 66 as well. So it's a bigger refrigerator with the same size compressor. Because of how big these refrigerators are, I will have in these baskets, and something to note is the baskets on the National Luna are plastic versus the metal ones that are kind of coated in the Snowmaster. So the last test I did on the smaller fridges, I had 24 bottles total divided between the two sides, and that was quite a bit. It filled it fairly well. There's some more space in there, but these refrigerators are huge. This one has 18 on the smaller side and 20 on the larger side of the refrigerator. So we're testing a lot more water, so it is going to be less efficient just because, like I said, same compressor sizes, so it's going to take a lot more of that compressor to run to cool that much more. Let's start with the National Luna. I'll put the baskets in. Again, these are room temperature waters. We're going to see how well they cool in 3 hours. Okay, so I had the National Luna testing for the last 3 hours. It's actually been over a little 3 hours, but the time lapse was only 3 hours. We're seeing which one can cool faster and which one uses the most battery doing so. These should be about equal, but it's hard to say. So these are both on automatic mode. I'm not doing a low setting or a high setting. I'm just letting it do its thing. It's using its smart features because I believe the National Luna actually has 4 modes. It has a low, medium, high, and a turbo mode. I do not have turbo mode on. I'll switch this test over to the Snowmaster and we'll find out how it does. Something to note on these two refrigerators is the Snowmaster can be a freezer on either side, both sides. So the smaller side on the National Luna is the primary freezer side. The Snowmaster has an audible alarm for the doors being open. The National Luna does not. The Snowmaster has 2 LED lights, one for each zone. The National Luna has 1 LED light for the main zone. The freezer zone does not have one. So just little things to note on the differences between these two units. Another thing to note with these refrigerators is the National Luna does not have a drain plug. All the Snowmasters I've seen all have a drain plug, and even the Set Power has a drain plug. Now, to me, that's a big deal because I've had a refrigerator on the Washington trip. The refrigerator, I actually had a bunch of spilled milk, and it was starting to get pretty gross in the bottom of the refrigerator. I had so much stuff in this thing that I didn't even realize it had happened until near the end of the trip. Discovered it, and it was nice to pull the plug, dump some hot water into it, and then just let it clean itself out. And I took a few paper towels. If the same thing would have happened on the National Luna, I would have had to use probably half of a roll of paper towels and then put water in it and then slop that up with paper towels or an actual towel, which we all know you don't have access to that much stuff on these types of trips. So that's a downside for sure. Okay, so now I'm testing the National Luna, and on this test, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go between the National Luna and the Snowmaster, and all I'm doing is testing to see how much power they drain in 3 hours. They've already been cooled down with AC power, and what I'm going to do with this test is I'm going to unplug them and just let it run for 3 hours on a battery just to see how much it uses. I'm going to get started with the National Luna, and we'll see how this thing does as far as being efficient on battery drain. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these two connected to AC power because I don't really care how much power they take to freeze. I just want to see which one is faster at freezing. So the National Luna technically has a little bit more of a lid, I think, because it has a little plastic tray thing that goes over the top of the freezer side. So I'm going to turn the smaller side on each of these fridges. The National Luna, that is the dedicated freezer side. I'm going to set it to 15. And we're going to see which one in 12 hours, 14, 15 hours, we're going to see which one of these does the best. Both of these refrigerators have been powered on for the last 48, 72 hours, and all their contents are at 35 degrees. So it's not like this is going from room temperature to freeze. This is going from cold to freeze. Okay, so it's been 23 hours. I came up here earlier after 12 hours and it wasn't quite enough time. Neither of them really had any frozen anything. Even though it's been 23 hours, like your home freezer might have froze all this stuff, but for these, this is a lot of work. This is the National Luna. And again, it does have this secondary cover here. We got one that's pretty frozen. These ones are probably the quick freeze, yeah. So I can knock them and they freeze. Pretty much all like to the point of slush. So you can see they're all about that cold, to where you can give them a little shake and they freeze, or they slush up anyway. It's still not frozen. Let's see what this looks like. It's about the same, it looks like. So this one's maybe a little bit more. What do we got here? Oh, the Snowmaster though does have one that is basically frozen solid. This one's super slush. And then this one's almost frozen solid, enough to where I can't break it with my hand. So the Snowmaster has 1, 2 that are frozen solid, which I don't know if that's really a big deal. It does have more frozen stuff in it. I'm going to give them another 12 hours. I assume they'll be pretty frozen by then, all of them. So yesterday, after, what was that, 48 hours, I came up here to check these, and there wasn't enough of a difference to really even concern myself with it. But I wanted to leave it for another day. So it's been another 24 hours, and now it's kind of easy to see what's going on here. So both fridges, this is the Snowmaster. They have a ton of bottles frozen. So looking in here, the Snowmaster has one. I know that just slushed on me, but this one was complete liquid. The rest of them are frozen solid. Everything else is a block of ice. The Snowmaster is basically frozen. Everything is completely frozen except for one bottle. So then in the National Luna, on the freezer side, we've got this one on the top, which is mostly frozen, but it's definitely got some water in there. That one's frozen solid. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of these are the point where, is that going to do it? They're not even cold. Oh, there's the frost growing. Now the Snowmaster is slightly smaller, but it's pretty obvious here from what I'm seeing that the Snowmaster is a better freezer. So I'm not too surprised that the National Luna did a little bit worse. Because I've got experience with both of these, I just kind of wanted to prove it and not just go off of my say-so. But being that it has this extra lid and this is the dedicated freezer side, I would just assume that it would do a little bit better than that. Now, obviously it did freeze stuff solid. It is a capable freezer and we're asking a lot of it. Both sides can technically be a freezer, but they say that if you really want to freeze stuff, use that far smaller side. As the Snowmaster, you can do whatever you want with it and it will work. I'm just going to go with the Snowmaster as the clear winner for the freezer. Just like I said in my other video comparing the other fridges, I know not everybody is using one of these as a freezer all the time like I am. When you have a bunch of stuff in the freezer side of the National Luna, and you've already got a bunch of frozen stuff in here, it's not a test like this. If you just had all these bottles frozen and you threw one or two of these in there or an ice tray, it freezes it relatively easily. But my issue with this is because it is a fridge freezer, this panel right here started growing a bunch of ice on it. And then this would not close as easy, and so this would not close as easy. And it was driving me crazy because I was having to chip ice away all the time. And it was growing all the way out to here. I've never had that issue with one of the Snowmasters. It always seals correctly. And that was driving me a little bit crazy because all of the cold, the extra cold air is escaping from here. And so you're getting ice crystals right here. And that got really annoying to me because I use a freezer so often.
National Luna is viewed as top tier gear. Its stainless steel finish and efficiency put it to the top of people's wish lists, and this fridge does a very good job at maintaining the set temperature and keeping it there. This fridge comes with no extras aside from a cable and a high amperage plug, and as far as I know, there's no way to add a remote like many refrigerators now have. Even the most current version of this fridge still lacks a remote option. The freezer function falls short in this test, but most people don't rely on a freezer, so it might not be a big deal for many users. National Luna fridges are used in some of the most harsh conditions on Earth, being popular in South Africa and Australia. When compared to the Snowmaster, it does struggle a bit in terms of its ability to cool and freeze as fast, and rapid cooling is a feature that I personally rely on because being able to store pre-packaged drinks outside of the fridge and cool them as needed saves a lot of space for fresh food and better meals on your adventures. Make no mistake though that this fridge does cool its contents quickly, just not as fast as a Snowmaster. And once again, please note that this is the classic version of this fridge, and the newer models use a different compressor and they claim to have better insulation, though it's the same size insulation. If I get a chance to test one of the newer ones in the future, I will certainly do so. The Snowmaster comes in slightly cheaper than the National Luna fridge does, while still featuring a stainless finish but also adding several upgrades. All Snowmasters come with a wireless solar-powered remote, as well as a transit bag, which should slightly increase efficiency. The Snowmasters come in several series, this being a travel series, which has the least amount of insulation compared to their other options, but still performs quite well as we saw in the tests. This fridge does drain more battery during the initial cooling process, but it cools faster than the National Luna does. This can be avoided if switched to its low mode to carry you over until you can charge your battery back up if that's necessary. I personally leave it in auto, and with any fridge, its best practice is to load it up in the morning so your solar or your alternator does the heavy lifting while on the trails. As we saw, the Snowmaster uses less power once the set temperature is met, so once you find camp, you have less to worry about. The Snowmaster's dual interior lights are a very nice touch. The latches on the Traveler series are quite robust, and this particular fridge even features power output so that other devices can be powered off of it. I appreciate the drain plugs as well for easy cleaning. One small complaint I do have is that on this particular model, the basket layout is sort of strange. To get to the bottom of one of the baskets, it's a chore and requires the removal of two other baskets to get there. Overall, the Snowmaster is the winner for me and the winner of these tests. As the dual door and rapid cooling features are things that I've come to love, the Snowmaster packs more features, maintains the premium finishes, and it comes in slightly cheaper. As always, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and feel free to check out my other adventure, off-road, and overland related content.